Support us here. Okay, great. I'm going to get us started then. Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for the monthly IEA webinar. My name is Lisa Jordan. I'm the Managing Director of the IEA, and I'm the Executive Director of the Charlotte Executives Association. I'm glad to see you all here, and thank you for joining us. I'm excited to introduce our webinar speaker, John Backstrom, this morning from the Seattle Execs. But before I do that, I want to do a quick plug, as I always do, for the IEA annual conference. It's coming up in September, the September 30th through October 2nd in Akron, Ohio, which Akron, some people may not realize, is the birthplace of the IEA. The IEA was formed in Akron 30 years ago. So we're celebrating a little bit of an anniversary, and we would love to have you all there to celebrate that with us. George Myers, one of the webinar participants today, is one of our guest speakers at the conference. So we're excited to welcome George and several other IEA members who are going to be speaking at the conference. It's a great opportunity to network, expand your network beyond the four walls of your local association, your local chapter, and also a great way to grow your business and learn about some great business topics as well. The topics and the speakers are going to be on the IEA website by the end of this week, so I encourage you to check back. All right. As I mentioned earlier, we are recording this webinar and we'll post it to our YouTube page. So I hope that if you like what you heard and want to share it with others, you will do that. And if you are interested in hosting a webinar, I will put my contact information up in the chat, and I would invite you to reach out to me, and I can talk to you in more detail about hosting a future webinar for the IEA. All right, enough of my blabbering. I am going to introduce John now, who is a native of Seattle and has had a decades-long career of achievement in business management, sales, advertising, and marketing. Stints in outdoor advertising, airport advertising, and direct mail prepared John for a successful career in sales management and face-to-face marketing. In 2001, John bought the Skyline Exhibits dealership for Washington State and Alaska and ran it successfully for over 20 years, building the client base and weathering several major storms. In 2022, Skyline Exhibits Corporate acquired the dealership from John, and John continued to serve his legacy clients as the contract sales agent for Skyline Exhibits. In early 2025, John's commitment to Skyline ended, and in September of 2025, John went to work for Peak Parking as their market vice president, tasked with growing the PNW business and building the team. All right, John, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Lisa. What a great intro. It almost sounds like something I would have wrote. Oh, wait, I did write it. Oh, that's right. Well, listen, this is a great audience to have, and it's a great topic. I mean, I love talking about parking. I subscribe to that theory of the secret to joy in life is to be unboreable, and I have embraced that wholeheartedly. So I did, as Lisa mentioned, I did trade show booth. Um, Owned a company for 20 plus years and loved that. But when I had the opportunity to work with a former exec, Will Spielhagen at Peak Parking, doing something new, I said, sign me up. So here we are. So that's how you go from trade shows to to parking. But what we're going to talk about today, so this is the lofty title here, Strategies for Value, Tech, and Scalability. Little note, Peak Parking is the company that I work for. Peak Parking is owned by one of the largest international parking companies called Smart Park International. And Smart Parking has a product called Smart Park, Smart Parking, that so it's kind of that thing of the brand and the product. So the company Peak is we also do traditional garage management. Before we talk about that, just a little bit about who am I. This is a hangover. Anybody who does executive association classification talks, we always want to talk about who we are. That informs what we do, obviously. We're big sports fans. We celebrated our Seahawk Super Bowl win. My wife and my son and I had a Mariners game. And then, of course, my real passion in life, don't tell my wife, but is that boat right there, which is the Salty Dog 4. And that's lower right. That's my BFF. My brother from another mother, Mustafa Bilal, who I met via execs. So it's shocking how many things in my life are related and tied into execs, including this opportunity to work for Peak. So what makes Peak special? Well, there's a lot of parking companies out there, and now that I'm telling you this, what's going to happen to you is what happened to me when I started working in parking is um, everything I look at looks like parking now. Like I'm looking at it, everything, and it's the same thing here. So probably have never thought about it. You just go in the garage, and the arm goes up, and then you put your credit card, and you get a ticket, and whatever. Sometimes that stuff doesn't work. Well, peak parking, that's how peak started just about 10 years ago. Um, Will Spielhagen, former Seattle exec, was disenchanted with the parking industry and saw that, better service, more personal approach, really a reordering of who works in the business, and that's a little hard to explain, but basically dividing work, and it follows one of my credos, which is one of the reasons Will and I get along so well, is I live by the motto, let the rabbits run, let the birds fly, let the fish swim. And what that means is you let people do more of what they're good at and less of what they're not good at. So that was one of the innovations. But peak parking really started as how can we do this better in a more personal way? And he kind of calls it his Jerry Maguire moment, if you're familiar with that great movie. Um, and so peak parking really grew organically from, one or two locations in Austin, Texas to over 150 locations. And, we're in Washington State, Indianapolis, we're big in Texas, Nashville, Atlanta, and growing. So that's the traditional side. And that's really when you think of parking garages, gates and arms and tickets and ticketing machines and things like that. And that's really I think of that as traditional parking management, and we do that. So that's one thing we do. But what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about where the world has gone while we were building. Well, I didn't help build it. Will did it. Well, Will was building this boutique, very customer service oriented business here in the United States. Out in the rest of the world, parking is a different animal, particularly in Europe. But the smart parking limited started in Australia, New Zealand, and spread into locations in Europe. And I would my interpretation of European parking is that it's almost a combat sport. If you should have 25 spots, you have eight. And and that's just the value of real estate, the density of cities. A lot of the cities in Europe were designed for horses and carriages and really not designed for modern vehicles. And how we use cars and how we use parking has changed. So smart parking comes in as an innovation that helps people manage their parking. And really, if you think of it, the core principle, and we could wrap this whole call up right now, the whole core principle is you need your parking to be available for your customers. And that's the end of the story. I mean, when you think about competition for retail strip malls and small restaurants, if people drive by and they don't see available parking or easily available parking, or the parking lot's difficult, it can directly affect your business. And there's some metrics and things we'll talk about in a minute, but really smart parking took a technology first approach. So when we think about what we're going to talk about is how the rest of the world manages parking. And you're starting to see some of it here in the United States. But it's really this idea, again, going back to the principle of making sure that the parking is available for your customers. So, and just some statistics about smart parking here that everybody can read. Um, so when we think about why you would have something like some stats here. I'm only going to touch on a couple of these. I'll leave it up here for a minute though while we talk over it. Um, it is amazing to me that 90 to 95% of the time a car is not being used. It's interesting when you think about the value and the cost for that asset, what it costs us to have it, however you measure it. The other one that really got me was the 68% of land in cities is devoted to parking spaces. And there's actually in the municipal world, there's actually some really interesting research that's being done about parking availability and how that affects retail volumes. So there are actually some pretty technical people out there, um, working on this issue. So 2 billion parking spots in the United States. That's a couple. Um, anyway, so let's talk about what the issues are. What can happen with parking? We'll touch a little bit more on the value of this. Actually, I'll throw this in here right now. So one of our big customers in England is McDonald's, and we have hundreds of locations with McDonald's in the UK. And I should say, Smart Parking has over 1,600 locate parking locations around the world under management in the queue. So it's a big deal. And they bought Peak Parking. I'm segueing back here, sorry. And they bought Peak Parking at the beginning of last year. So that's where the affiliation comes in. I guess I should say that a little more clearly. And there is a lot of debate about the Peak Parking brand versus Smart Parking, but Smart Parking is the product and it's the type of system we're going to talk about today. So what we're trying to control is we're trying to control that first thing, the primary thing, which is if my customer pulls up, there's a place for them to park. That's everybody needs that. Every retail development, every restaurant, we all need that. And then the second layers are, bad parking, obviously, unauthorized usage. That's a big one. And what we're starting to see here in the Seattle area, I don't know if it filters out to the rest of the world, but we're starting to our light rail system is finally being developed. I mean, New York's had subways for 150 years, but we're catching up, right? Like we have trains now. We have two lines. But what's happening is when they put in these lines, they don't put enough parking at each of the stations. And they're doing that intentionally because they want people to walk to the train station. Well, anybody that has had to build or operate a business depending on human nature and you're telling people, gosh, we'd really like you to walk to the train station, right? They're not going to do it. We have to meet people where they are. And so what's happening with these train stations is the neighborhoods around the train stations, the banks, the small strip malls, the restaurants, the churches, all of these places are getting overrun with people parking their cars and then walking a block or so. They get as close as they can to the train station, and then they park and they leave their car for the day and they go to work or they go downtown or whatever. And this is happening. So when these pressures happen, when these changes, and sometimes it could be a traffic change, in our case, it's the light rail coming in. You start to get this misuse of parking spaces, and it's kind of the core reason why smart parking was developed and why these systems are being used. And I should say that we're just one brand. There in the rest of the world, there are a lot of companies that use technology to monitor parking. And you say, John, I understand what the issue is, but how are you solving this problem? What do you do? How do you do that? Well, oh, we got one more. We got one more about behavior. Um, This is a big one I do want to highlight. I'm not one of these people who likes to read every slide because a lot of the data in here is, it depends on where we're at and what we're talking about, but data. And most people think of their parking in the sense of, do I have it or do I not? Is there garbage there? Did something bad happen? We have those simple things, but imagine knowing how many people used your lot, how long they stayed, your employees, when did they get here? When did they leave? If you have any service vendors that are on your list, when did they come? When did they leave? So having data for something as simple as an open and we're talking about literally like envision when I'm talking about parking solutions, envision, and everybody lives near one of these. Um, it's a half a block. There's an H&R Block. There's a Jimmy John's. There's an acupuncture chiropractor, a small bank, and maybe a mini market. Okay, so that's like the tenants in this mall, and that out in front there's 25 to 30 spaces, parking spaces for that mall. And that little mall is right next to another one that's got Panda Express, and so you think about that, and you think about where those spots are and what they're intended for. They're intended for the people in the businesses. So hold on to that. So when you think about that, you don't really want to do like gates and arms, and you don't really want to do any type of control. I mean, it'd be great, but the problem is that costs a lot of money. The equipment can break down. So how can we do that? Well, what we do, again with more slides, so we're just going to come right forward to tech and solutions because this is really what we're all here about. So everybody, I think, has heard this is one of those issues, LPR. Does everybody know what LPR stands for? Everybody, yes? Okay. License plate recognition. In Europe, they call it ANPR, which stands for annual number plate recognition. And the thing that really makes this work, and it's been used for a long time, obviously, in ticketing and traffic, and we've all heard about flock cameras and whatnot. But the real revolution here is the back end, the AI slash machine learning tools that you can build on the back end to really sift through what's going on. So think about that lot. We just talked about that lot. It's got an entrance on one end and it's got another at the other end. What an operator can do is come in and put a camera at each end. And what the cameras are doing is they're recording people when they come into the parking lot, and then they're recording when they leave. And if that person is a valid customer, then everything's great. If they're not a valid customer, they get a ticket. And so what happens from the tenant aspect is that we're not having anything violent or direct occur on site at the property. In other words, the ways you could do this, and in the past, there's people that wear a little vest and they go out there and say, "Oh, why are you parking here?" And so then you get a confrontation, or they're putting a ticket on the car, or in extreme cases, and I've talked to people who've actually had cars towed. They watch people walk away, and there's signs that say you can't walk away or you're going to get towed, and they tow them. Well, I personally feel like towing is like one of the most violent things we can do. So the using technology and using this solution gives us a softer, gentler way to manage the spaces and correct behavior. And what happens, it's been proven time after time in Europe where this is extremely prevalent. They'll have a problem, and within about 60 to 90 days, 80 to 90% of the problem is gone because they've trained parkers that this is not a place where you can park. And then it's just a question of setting rules. If you can set rules that are like 1 hour customer only parking, and so then anybody who stays over an hour is going to get notified. You can do it validation. So like let's say it was a location that had 5 restaurants and they share a parking lot. Those 5 restaurants would have a validation system that the company we would provide for them, and they validate the customer's license plate number and everything's groovy. But if somebody's coming in from somewhere else, they're going to get a ticket. And so that's just and the nice thing about it is it doesn't require somebody remembering to do something. It doesn't require any direct engagement. All the enforcement happens away from the property. So it's really a kinder, gentler way to manage your parking. And it's extremely accurate. I mean, and I will say, a little sidebar here, there are 11 states in the United States that do not allow license plate recognition for the purposes of processing violations. If anybody's interested in that list, send me a note and I can read the list or send the list to you. We do also use LPR technology on the traditional side for monthly parkers. It can help speed up entry and exit. But once you have a technology system like this installed, what it really gives you is it just gives you a ton of data. I mean, um, we have a system that gives you basically a dashboard so that you can look at who's going in. Are they permitted, like staff members are what we call a white list or a safe list? Do you want the parking lot to be only for staff? Do you want to have free parking for a limited time? That tends to work best if you have a bunch of different kinds of businesses. Do you want to have a max stay? In other words, like one of the things we're seeing with the light rail impact is we've actually seen people park their car for 3 days in somebody's parking lot while they take a trip on the airplane because the light rail goes to the SeaTac airport and they find parking and it looks like free parking, right? I mean, it's just there's no restrictions. I can just park there, right? No. And that's where also where signs come in. We can talk about that in a second. But yeah, so we can set up the business rules in anybody that works with something like this. And you can even layer in paid parking. And you can have all these things exist together. For example, if you're not a customer and you do want to park here, it's $10 an hour. And then they would just scan a QR code and make payment through one of the established. We use a company called ParkWiz, which is takes the QR code payment and then they're processed in the system. So it really is super flexible. And what I like to think about is when I'm thinking about people, Lisa and I were laughing a little bit, about the fact that there's not going to be as many people on this call because of how it was brought in. But, I also said jokingly, I said parking is one of those things you don't really care about it until you have a problem. It's like podiatry. It's like you don't care what podiatrists do until your feet hurt. And then and then you got to go get something done. It's the same thing with parking. So what we're continually looking for, because that is one of the things with execs, right? We always want to know how can we help people, our fellow execs, improve their business. And so I always just say, if there's a problem with parking, if somebody's having a problem, just call me and we'll talk about it and make recommendations and talk about solutions. So when we think about the advantages, so we think about all the different things we can do with LPR, in terms of managing our parking and making sure it's available for staff or customers. Um, what typically we see is that there's an increase in availability, decreases in random cars left in your parking lot. Interestingly, too, going back to McDonald's just quickly, because this is a value thing, they did a study on the value of a parking space to a McDonald's. So they wanted to know what's the value of that, and it's about $750 per week. Each parking spot is worth $750 per week. So what's the 150 bucks, 100 whatever a day? So that's significant for selling burgers and fries. So just, thinking about hold on to that. Let's see. So we talk about it also gives people, if you think about other users like churches, for example, they only use their parking 1.5 days a week, depending on what types of things they do, other activities. But oftentimes they're in communities where that parking could be valuable. So we actually, with our system, can monetize a parking area that prior wasn't. Or we have a case, let's say, of a restaurant that only serves breakfast and lunch, but then after 5 p.m., the bar across the street, everybody wants to use their parking lot. That's a way for the owner of the parking lot to get some value out of the property taxes that they're paying. And our system will allow you to control that. Let's see, what else do we have? So then taking all of that, the tech and the back end, checking things out, making sure people are who they're supposed to be and that we don't have abusers. The smart cloud hub is kind of where that all comes together for the customer. And again, in multi-tenant situations, each tenant can be given a different login so that they see the data that applies to them. So the really cool thing about this is it giving you a ton of information about how your parking is being used. And interestingly, in the United States, for if you rent space in one of these retails, like in this mythical little strip mall that I was talking about, um, you're paying for that parking as a tenant because it's part of your common area maintenance. So you have a vested interest as a tenant in making sure that the parking that you pay for is available for the customers that are going to pay you so you can pay the landlord. It's interesting how all those things work together, isn't it? Um, Yeah, so this hub is very cool, and I always tend to do this talking about it without pictures. It's a computer program. You go on, you log in, yeah, you can get it from anywhere. But it also allows you as a tenant, it also allows you to manage the whitelist. So, which is really important because if you think about it for a restaurant, you might have 150 or 100 spots, but 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 of them are used by your staff. So making sure that your staff don't have any issues is a big deal. And you can do all of that right on the Smart Hub. Um, and then other technology, obviously the tablet, that's something that we put at the front desk if we do need to do like a validation. And again, in the United States, we're not quite used to this yet, but the rest of the world is doing this every single day. Like I've heard people say, well, I don't always remember my license plate number. In the rest of the world, everybody knows their license plate number or they've got it on their phone and they're prepared when they go in somewhere. Did you park with us today? Oh, thank you. We'll be sure and validate right here. It's a big deal in the rest of the world. So anyway, yeah, so you've got access to all of that. That's great. Also great for gyms. Um, yeah. This can be used for multiple sites. Obviously, you can have multiple sites in, and really what it is just using technology to monitor assets. So let's see, what else do we have here? So a couple little summaries. These are just some little final points. We're trying to get rid of bad parking. We're trying to get rid of misuse of parking, trying to make sure that staff isn't having to confront people in parking lots, walk around with a little vest. That's a huge thing. Safety, if there is an issue, we're not a security system. Other people who do this are not intended for security, but we do have access to the data. So if there's a need, we can bring that up. um, People knowing that people that are supposed to park there are the only ones that are parking there. 24/7. I love that. Never goes to sleep. There's not a little booth. And is the guy in there? Where'd the guy go? Um, and then it can grow as your business grows, it's simple. It's cameras and signs. And the signs are key. We didn't really talk about the signs, but when you look at car parks and you look at what people do when they come into park, uh, having the signage that clearly explains to people. And I actually made a suggestion to the team in England. I said, "Hey, when people get a ticket, there's a picture of them entering the lot with a timestamp, shows their car, and then it shows their car leaving with a timestamp and says, hey, you're not supposed to be here, or you stayed too long, or whatever the infraction is." And my little suggestion was, hey, we should also put a picture of the sign that they ignored. Just as and they're working on that. But I think it's important because, we all see the signs, we all read the signs, but we don't, if there's nothing behind it, if nothing happens, you know. So anyway. And I think that's pretty much it. Using technology to solve solutions and keeping parking available. So this is the point when I should ask for questions, but I've only got three people here. So do any of you have any questions that you'd like to ask me about parking or the use of technology, smart parking, LPR to fix parking issues?
I would actually.
Hi, Jacqueline. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine.
This is really interesting because I have a lot of clients that have multiple locations. One has 38 locations, another one is a bank. They have 7 locations, and they don't have
Mhm.
any of this. Also, we have tons of churches in Tulsa. I mean, you can just swing a wet cat around, you can hit a church. So, um, yeah, I mean, I would love to have actually just like an intro probe question because we do have parking issues a lot, and
Mhm.
that'd be great to have this here. Do you guys have a salesperson here?
Uh,
Selling?
we, we don't. So So the weird thing, and this is funny, and thank you for your question. It's a great question, and I'm super excited to connect with you on it. Oklahoma happens to be one of the states that's not on the no LPR list, so yay. We're huge in Texas, so I would assume that our Texas team would help at least get things rolling. But yeah, this is available anywhere. The two things we need, number one, we need to not have the be in a no LPR state like California. Sorry, California. But the other thing is we just need access to power. So at least one of the locations. So um, and you brought up a couple of great use cases. Churches are huge. The issue in America is that so far that I've seen in doing this for the last 6 months and really pushing this is that unless there's a problem, unless they're experiencing some pain, um, people, I don't know. It's like that there's some weird attitudes about parking. Oh, I want to be a good neighbor. And it's like, okay, well, so being a good neighbor, that's like, Jerry Seinfeld, Kramer comes over and steals his cereal, right? I mean, is that being a good neighbor? You're going to come over and steal some stuff? Well, I want to be a good neighbor. It's like, no. So, and the other thing in the United States, it feels like in many areas we've built enough parking so that like if you look at some of the malls, like this last picture slide that's up is of a mall in California, and there's so much space, right? Um,
We're
but
running
what we
out of that here.
exactly that's thank you. Thank you for closing the
And
loop
then we
faster
have
than me.
multiple locations in
Hmm.
one lot, and then it's
Yep.
becoming a problem for each business because if there's
Right.
more coffee goers than there are like, you know,
Hmm.
tailor
Well,
shops.
and let's say that coffee people show up and they meet there, Cheryl and Christine meet at the coffee place, and then they both jump into Christine's car and they go hiking for the day and then they come back. Well,
We do that all the time.
I know, right? We do that all the time. But now you've just taken a parking spot from that coffee shop that could have been used for the next customer. So that's where setting the business rules and banks in particular should be easy. Like you close at 5 o'clock. If you don't want people parking in the lot after 6 o'clock, no parking after 6 p.m. We can put that wall down. Or you might say, hey, we're getting abused by the bar across the street. Why don't we make some money on it? Make some money on selling those spaces between 6 p.m. and 4 a.m. or 6 p.m. and 7 a.m., you know, parking $10. So it's a variety and it really depends on, the challenge that they're facing. So um
And
absolutely.
maybe they
And
don't even know they're experiencing a problem yet until we ask that right question, you know.
yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah,
I
well
would
I
love
was
to connect and get you
yes, let's
into
do it.
Oklahoma because we're having
Yes.
problems.
Well, I
Yeah.
will I will connect with you. And what I would love to do, a call just like this, and what we normally do is we bring up Google Maps and we look at the overview, and I can diagnose pretty much exactly what's going on from the Google Maps view, and we can talk about solutions. The really cool thing about this, and I probably should have led with this, but I don't know. I never think about this stuff, but our solution is free. We come to your business and put this in for free. No installation, no monthly management, nothing. The whole system is predicated on getting enough revenue from the violations to pay off the equipment. And typically that's, anywhere from 2 to 5 years is a payoff period. But it's silent equipment. It just sits there and runs. And so for somebody like a regional bank, if you had, let's say you had 28 locations and we could roll them up and have that level of security, and their security people would love it just because having that extra set of eyes monitoring what's going on. Yeah, it's free. I mean, I'm basically giving something away, which is just weird. I've never done that before. I feel like my wife's like, you should be charging like a $3,500 entry fee or like initiation fee or something, and then you can waive it. I'm like, I don't want to do that. But anyway, it's a clear enough proposition. I think most business people get the idea. It's And then of course somebody will say, well, so at what point do I get to share in the revenue? It's like, well, once we've paid the equipment back, we'll have a conversation. Or if you want to help pay for the equipment, if you want to pay 50%, we'll give you 50% of the violation revenue. Now, a lot of people don't want that revenue though because of where it slots in. Right. Because it gives you the ability to say, well, that's our third party parking company, Smart Park, and I can't do anything to help you with that, which is not true, but So yes, Jacqueline, let's connect. Um, Lisa, I don't know, how do I get connection information for people?
Yeah, Jacqueline, you're welcome to put it in the chat if you're comfortable with
Oh,
that, or if not,
perfect.
I can email John your contact info after the call's over, either way.
Yeah, and actually Anoop, who's on the call, he's our newest salesperson. So you asked a great question. Somebody asked a great question about the sales force. So Peak Parking has never had a sales team. So the interesting thing is that we have people that work in the market, operations people called the ops team, and then we have account management people at corporate in Austin that help with billing and settling tickets and all that kind of stuff, and all the growth has been organic. It's referral, word of mouth, and they really tried to keep the size. Well, now all of a sudden we have this smart parking bolt on, if you will, and they're turbocharging. So we now have Anoop and I and Eric, who's in Indianapolis. We have three salespeople, but we're growing. So if you know anybody in the Oklahoma area, Jacqueline, who would like to experience, yeah.
I can probably just incorporate into what I already sell. I
So
mean, I am
what do you
end-to-end
do?
branding. Oh my gosh. I literally do everything. So I sell company stores to large corporations, LED displays,
Oh,
um,
ooh,
AI
do you do
integrations
static
for
signage?
processes. Huh?
Do you do static signage like
I do.
Sintra or
And I
okay?
even do parking lot signage,
Oh, perfect.
direct
Okay, you're my new
mail.
vendor in Oklahoma. You get me the
Yay, I
deal,
do.
I'll buy all my signs from you, 100%.
Dude, that's awesome. That's why I joined. I've been waiting 15 years to be part of Tulsa Executive Association.
You were one
15
of the
years.
people that had to wait. Oh my God.
I've been waiting forever.
And
And
how's
then
it been? How do you
oh,
love it?
I absolutely love it. It's like you get to meet people on your level, other CEOs, and
Mhm.
not just a sales rep for a company.
Yeah.
So you get to actually not only learn more because they're helping sharpen who I am as a business owner, and
Mhm.
I'm learning so much more. Just learning about your business, it's really intriguing, and I get to hear it from a different, a perspective
Yeah.
that I understand.
Right.
So it's really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
Tulsa
that's
just
awesome.
joined the IEA about a year ago, so they weren't even members for all that time. So glad
Wow.
you're jumping in with both feet, Jacqueline, and participating
Yeah.
with us.
I'll be in
That
Well,
Ohio.
oh, good. Yes, you're coming to Akron, right? Good.
I'm going all in.
I love it.
Okay,
I love
if
it.
if you if you get me some locations in Tulsa or Oklahoma area, I will go to the IEA
That's awesome.
celebration as well. I
That's
I I hereby
amazing.
commit.
Awesome. I'll get you some
Okay.
hot spots.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect. Perfect.
let's help somebody and figure out how to and we'll figure out how to monetize that for you, whether it's a finder's fee or something like that. But definitely the signage, that's for real.
Hey,
Uh,
that's
we
good
pref
enough. That's cool.
we prefer to do the signage locally, and then we're always trying to connect with people who do like who can do electrical installs. So like our electrician, commercial electrician up here in Seattle, in execs, is the group that's going to be putting in my first location here in Federal Way. So that's how the whole thing works, right? If I've got something, I want to work with you. If you've got something you want to work with me, let's keep it in the family. And that's the
Yeah.
power of execs, really. I've been in execs, in and around execs since 2001. So
Oh, wow.
for a minute. Yeah.
That's
But thank you,
amazing.
Jacqueline. Looking forward to
No,
connecting with you. Did you have
thank
any
you. This is
questions, Mr.
awesome.
George Myers?
Hey, I'm just enjoying watching you and Jacqueline do business here. I mean, this is awesome. It's awesome.
But
Execs
it's
in
the
action.
power
We're
of
watching
execs,
it.
right?
It is. It's awesome. I
Yeah,
do want Jacqueline. What was your expression again about cats in Tulsa? What'd you say? What was that
Oh,
expression?
you can like sling a wet cat, and
yeah,
it's kind of like same thing you would like attorneys here. Attorneys and
yeah,
churches is what we
yeah.
have.
In England, they would say swing a dead cat, but she's updated it
She's
to a
going
wet
wet
cat.
cat.
I
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
I
wet
wet
cat.
cat
mean,
better.
I
Wet
usually
cat.
say you could throw a rock, but maybe wet cat is what I'll go with
I
now.
I hadn't heard that before. I'm going to use that in my facilitations from this point forward. That's good. Thank you. Thank you. John, I have one question for you. I'm curious. This is a weird question, so it's totally off topic in some ways, but it's not really. Tell me about Big Brother and these cameras.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're members of a group. It's basically the Parking Industry of America, and there are standards that we have to follow as a parking operator. So the use of the data specifically, and actually it was an issue here in Washington in this last legislative session. There was a bill that was up, and I think it may have passed, that was restricting how municipalities could use or how long they could keep LPR data that they'd collected. And the specific fear was ICE or some type of enforcement. The data isn't doesn't stick around, and more importantly, we don't actually touch the data. We use a third party vetted organization that gets the data, generates the ticket, sends the ticket. So everything happens in a silo, kind of a clean room, sandbox kind of situation, and we don't own it or keep it in any way. So once the violation is done, the violation is registered by the person. So then everything follows on from that and says, we're not keeping your data. So, but it's a great question. When I was talking to a city, I'm trying to get into airports, small airports and cities are two of my targets just because I'm fascinated by how they manage things. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a great question.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious. I would guess probably these days some people are a little more anxious about that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I'm not.
Well,
I don't
and we're
really
not
care if
as
people are watching me, but I'm
well.
just some people.
Yeah, we're not a surveillance country. I mean, if you think about England, they
Yeah,
say that
right.
there's like 8 square meters in the London
Yeah,
core that isn't monitored by cameras,
yeah,
multiple cameras,
yeah, yeah.
and there's layers and layers of systems. So they're a little more used to it. We're not as
Right.
used to it here in the United
Yeah,
States, but it's coming. To Jacqueline's point about,
yeah.
we do have lots of space until we don't,
Mhm.
and yeah. Anyway.
We can have
Great
parking
question.
lots in Wyoming, John. Come on, North Dakota. Come on.
Hey, yeah, but the problem is the prairie's right over there, and just go park on the prairie. Yeah. So anybody else have any questions, or are we going to wrap up 15 minutes early, which is my son's nickname as a film producer is Mr. Early Wrap, so I'm going to borrow his moniker.
That was very
No?
interesting, John. Thank you for your
Yeah,
time today,
yeah.
Yeah.
and educating all of us on all this money that's being left on the table. It's very interesting.
Well, and protecting assets, that's the thing I really get after is protecting the asset for its intended use. And if you've got an inexpensive, simple way to do that, why wouldn't you do it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So just call John or Anoop. If you're in Houston area, call Anoop. But if you're anywhere else, call John. I can help you and get you to the right place. So Jacqueline, I'm looking forward to connecting with you, learning more about what you do, and taking over Oklahoma. Let's do it.
Yeah, it looks like I can host my own webinar. I see that, Lisa. This is
That's
interesting.
right.
Yeah,
That's right. Well,
yeah.
yeah, let's just get you all in. You're just
Let's
all
get
in
Good,
me
good.
IEA.
booked.
Yeah,
And
if
Jacqueline,
only, go ahead.
Jacqueline, if you can get John to International Association by doing something with him, that I'm going to hold him to that. I'm going to hold you to that, John.
100%.
Heck
I
yeah.
made the commitment. I'll
Okay,
have to go in
let's
with
do
a
it.
hat and dark glasses because I'm actually forbidden to go to Ohio, but I'll sneak in for you.
Uh,
That's awesome.
Hey, we're gonna have a great time. We're going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for our social event, so it's gonna be a lot of
I,
fun.
I have
Okay.
been there. I did some work at the Cleveland airport way many, many moons ago, and we went to it's very good.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. This will
Thank
be
you,
on the
everybody.
YouTube page probably in a couple of days, and we
Yeah.
look forward to seeing you on the next one.
a small but energetic audience. I love it. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Be well.
Bye, John.
Take care.
Bye.